English talking practice. Alex often found himself completely tongue-tied, paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes whenever the opportunity arose to speak English. It was a constant, frustrating battle within his mind, a silent war where his thoughts raced but no words dared to escape his lips. He yearned to express himself freely, to join in effortless conversations like those he observed daily. This profound desire fueled his secret ambition. The sheer ease with which other people talked in English seemed almost magical, an unattainable superpower. Alex would sit in cafes, intently listening to the vibrant chatter around him, marveling at their natural intonation and fluid phrasing. He meticulously analyzed their interactions, trying to decipher the unwritten rules of spontaneous communication, yet feeling an ever-present gap between his understanding and his ability to produce. His daily day's struggle was palpable, a heavy weight that shadowed his ambitions. Every morning, he woke with a renewed determination, only for it to slowly dissipate by lunchtime, replaced by the familiar pang of self-doubt. Simple interactions felt like insurmountable obstacles, transforming routine tasks into anxiety-inducing challenges. The pressure to articulate thoughts flawlessly was immense, often leading to complete silence. He spent countless hours pondering how to talk to anyone in English, tirelessly searching for a magical formula or an instant solution. Online forums, language apps, and self-help books became his constant companions, each promising a breakthrough. Yet, the transition from theoretical knowledge to practical application remained stubbornly elusive, a persistent barrier preventing true conversational fluency and natural expression. The concept of English talking practice felt overwhelming, often leaving him feeling inadequate before he even began. He knew practice was crucial, but the sheer awkwardness of speaking alone, or the fear of judgment when speaking with others, always held him back. It felt like an endless loop of wanting to improve but being too afraid to take the necessary, painful first steps. Confidence in speaking was the ultimate goal, the elusive key he desperately sought. Alex understood that knowledge alone wasn't enough. True fluency required an unshakable belief in one's ability to communicate effectively. He saw confident speakers making mistakes, correcting themselves, and moving on effortlessly, a skill he deeply admired but found impossible to emulate personally. Remembering words was another significant hurdle in his language learning journey. He'd painstakingly memorize long lists of vocabulary, only to find them vanishing from his mind the moment he tried to construct a sentence. Flashcards piled up, digital apps were downloaded, yet the words remained abstract concepts, stubbornly refusing to embed themselves into his active memory for quick recall. One evening, feeling particularly discouraged, Alex stumbled upon an old online forum post. It wasn't about quick fixes but emphasized consistent, small steps. The advice was simple: listen and practice, even if it feels foolish. Consistency conquers all. This gentle nudge resonated deeply with his persistent desire to finally overcome his speaking anxiety. He decided to change his approach, starting with active listening. Instead of just passively hearing, he began dissecting conversations, mimicking intonations, and pausing to consider sentence structures. Podcasts became his constant companions during commutes, not just for general understanding, but specifically to identify common phrases and natural speech patterns, an intensive listening exercise. Every morning, he allocated 15 minutes to speaking aloud to himself, describing his surroundings, his breakfast, or his plans for the day. It felt incredibly awkward at first, like talking to an invisible friend, but he persevered. This private, low-stakes environment allowed him to experiment with words without the crushing fear of external judgment, building a tiny spark of comfort. To tackle the "how to remember words" challenge, Alex started associating new vocabulary with vivid images and personal experiences. Instead of rote memorization, he would create mini-stories incorporating the new words, making them feel alive and relevant. This method, surprisingly, made the words stick, turning abstract concepts into tangible, memorable elements. He also discovered the power of spaced repetition apps, which intelligently re-showed him words right before he was about to forget them. This scientific approach to vocabulary acquisition significantly reduced the mental effort required for memorization, making the process far less daunting and far more efficient, allowing more time for actual speaking practice. The concept of English talking practice shifted from a daunting task to a daily ritual. He no longer viewed it as a grand performance but as a series of tiny, manageable experiments. Each small effort, whether a mumbled sentence or a correctly recalled word, felt like a miniature victory, slowly accumulating into a growing sense of capability and progress. A crucial turning point came when Alex decided to engage in very short, low-pressure conversations. He started by greeting the cashier at the supermarket, asking simple questions, and gradually extending the interaction. These brief exchanges, though initially nerve-wracking, became mini-triumphs, proving that he could indeed articulate himself and be understood, even imperfectly. He began observing how other people talk in English, not with envy, but with a learner's eye. He noticed their hesitations, their ums and ahs, realizing that even native speakers weren't perfectly fluent all the time. This insight significantly reduced his self-imposed pressure to be flawless, fostering a more forgiving attitude towards his own linguistic imperfections. Alex sought out language exchange partners online, specifically looking for patient individuals who understood the struggles of learning. These structured conversations, often held over video calls, provided a safe space to practice without the immediate pressure of a real-life public setting. He started feeling more comfortable making mistakes and asking for corrections. The advice on how to talk to anyone in English transformed into how to connect with anyone in English. He realized that effective communication wasn't just about perfect grammar but about genuine connection and understanding. Focusing on conveying his message, rather than perfect phrasing, surprisingly made his speech more natural and less strained. His daily day's struggle began to evolve. The initial anxiety didn't vanish entirely, but its intensity significantly diminished. He started anticipating opportunities to speak rather than dreading them. Small talk became less of a chore and more of a spontaneous challenge, an opportunity to test his growing abilities in real-world scenarios. The key to how make confidence in speaking for Alex was simply consistent exposure and celebrating small wins. Every successful interaction, no matter how brief, chipped away at his self-doubt. He began seeing progress not as a distant peak but as a series of gentle upward slopes, each climb building more resilience and self-assurance. He started watching English movies and TV shows without subtitles, pushing himself to grasp the context even if he missed individual words. This immersive approach, coupled with his active listening techniques, dramatically improved his comprehension and accelerated his ability to think directly in English without constant translation in his head. Alex also began journaling in English, dedicating time each day to writing down his thoughts, experiences, and reflections. This practice helped consolidate new vocabulary, reinforced grammatical structures, and provided a safe space for him to articulate complex ideas without the pressure of immediate verbal response, strengthening his overall linguistic foundation. The initial awkwardness of his English talking practice slowly began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of ease. He found himself thinking in English more often, even dreaming in it on occasion. This spontaneous internal monologue indicated a significant shift in his cognitive processing, a true sign of increasing fluency and comfort. One afternoon, during a local community event, Alex found himself chatting with a tourist. Usually, this situation would trigger panic, but this time, something felt different. He listened intently to her question, processed it, and found the words flowing from his mouth without the usual internal censorship or painful hesitation, a genuinely pivotal moment. The conversation wasn't flawless, there were stumbles and pauses, but Alex didn't let them deter him. He maintained eye contact, actively listened, and focused on conveying his message clearly. The tourist understood him perfectly, even laughing at one of his jokes, which filled him with an unprecedented surge of confidence and accomplishment. This single interaction, brief as it was, became a very interesting story for Alex, a personal triumph. It wasn't about perfect grammar or an extensive vocabulary, but about the courage to engage and the joy of being understood. It proved that all his silent struggles and consistent efforts were finally bearing fruit, transforming his fear into freedom. From that day forward, his approach to how to talk to anyone in English changed fundamentally. He no longer viewed conversations as tests to pass but as opportunities to learn and connect. He embraced mistakes as part of the learning process, seeing them as valuable feedback rather than embarrassing failures, making his progress much faster. He actively sought out chances for English talking practice in his daily life. Ordering coffee, asking for directions, participating in local meetups, each interaction became a mini training session. The more he spoke, the less daunting it felt, and the more natural his responses became, reinforcing positive speaking habits. His commitment to listen and practice deepened. He diversified his listening materials, from news broadcasts to documentaries, exposing himself to a wider range of accents and speaking styles. His ear became finely tuned, picking up nuances and subtleties that he had previously missed entirely, enhancing his overall comprehension. The process of how to remember words also became more intuitive. Instead of isolated memorization, he focused on learning words in context, within phrases and sentences. This contextual learning made retention easier and recall faster, integrating new vocabulary seamlessly into his active speaking repertoire. He started paying more attention to how other people talk in English, not to compare himself, but to internalize their flow and rhythm. He noticed how they used fillers, pauses, and intonation to convey meaning, incorporating these natural elements into his own speech, making it sound more authentic and less mechanical. The initial question of how to talk in English was gradually being answered through persistent effort and small, consistent steps. It wasn't about a secret trick, but about dedication. Each day brought a tiny increment of improvement, building momentum towards a much larger goal, an accumulating sense of mastery. Alex realized that, how make confidence in speaking, was less about innate talent and more about accumulated positive experiences. Every successful conversation, every moment of being understood, contributed to a growing reservoir of self-assurance, gradually eroding years of self-doubt and apprehension. His daily day's struggle transformed from a heavy burden into a series of manageable challenges. He found joy in the incremental progress, celebrating each new phrase he mastered or each confident interaction. The journey itself became rewarding, no longer a tiresome uphill battle but an exciting exploration of his capabilities. He began to give advice to other learners, sharing his journey and his strategies. He emphasized the importance of speaking, even imperfectly, and the power of consistent listening. His own transformation served as an inspiration, showing that overcoming language anxiety was indeed possible for anyone willing to persist. The very interesting story of Alex's journey wasn't just about learning English, it was about self-discovery and conquering personal fears. It showcased how dedication to a seemingly small goal could lead to profound personal growth, impacting not just his language skills but his overall self-perception and confidence in life. He understood that fluency wasn't about speaking without an accent or knowing every single word. It was about effective communication, about being able to express one's thoughts and feelings, and about connecting with others across linguistic barriers. This shift in perspective liberated him from perfectionism. Alex even found himself enjoying the occasional stumble or mistake, viewing them as natural parts of the learning curve, like a child learning to walk. He would playfully correct himself, sometimes even laughing at his own blunders, which further reduced the pressure and made the entire process more enjoyable. His vocabulary continued to expand, not through tedious lists, but organically through reading English books and engaging in more complex conversations. Words that once seemed abstract now had vivid contexts, making them easier to recall and use appropriately in various situations. He started watching interviews and debates, actively participating by mentally formulating his own responses. This advanced listening and internal speaking practice honed his critical thinking in English and prepared him for more sophisticated and challenging discussions, broadening his expressive range. The fear of public speaking in English, once an insurmountable mountain, began to shrink into a manageable hill. He found himself volunteering to present ideas in group settings, starting with small contributions and gradually expanding his participation, embracing the spotlight. His ability to, how to talk to anyone in English, wasn't just about initiating conversations, but also about sustaining them. He learned to ask follow-up questions, to elaborate on his points, and to effectively navigate conversational turns, making dialogues flow much more naturally. He realized that effective English talking practice also involved understanding cultural nuances and nonverbal cues. He paid attention to body language and tone, enriching his comprehension beyond mere words and allowing him to communicate with greater empathy and cultural sensitivity. Alex's daily day's struggle transformed into a daily joy of discovery. Each day offered new opportunities to use and improve his English, turning what was once a source of anxiety into a fulfilling and exciting part of his routine, a rewarding challenge. The journey to how make confidence in speaking was incremental, built brick by brick. Each brick was a conversation, a successful word recall, a moment of understanding. The cumulative effect was profound, creating an unshakable foundation of self-belief that radiated in all his interactions. He began using social media platforms to engage in written English discussions, further reinforcing his vocabulary and grammatical understanding in a less pressure-filled environment. This integrated approach ensured that all aspects of his English skills were continuously developing. The initial inspiration of how other people talk in English was no longer a source of envy but a guide. He observed how fluent speakers handled complex topics, how they expressed opinions, and how they used humor, learning from their techniques without feeling inferior. How to remember words became less of a conscious effort and more of an automatic process. His brain was now wired to absorb new vocabulary through context and repeated exposure, making the process feel effortless and natural, a true sign of deep learning. The core advice of listen and practice remained the bedrock of his continued improvement. He understood that language learning was a lifelong journey, and consistent engagement was the key to maintaining and further enhancing his hard-earned fluency. Alex started mentoring a new language learner, sharing his experiences and practical tips. He emphasized the importance of patience with oneself and celebrating every small victory, passing on the wisdom he had gained from his own transformation. His story became a testament to the fact that overcoming language barriers is not about extraordinary talent, but about extraordinary persistence. It's about showing up every day, making small efforts, and trusting the process, even when progress feels slow. He often reflected on his initial struggles, recognizing how far he had come. The memory of his silent, anxiety-ridden past served as a powerful reminder of his resilience and the incredible power of consistent, dedicated practice in achieving seemingly impossible goals. The question of how to talk in English was no longer a source of confusion but a confident assertion of his abilities. He now talked in English naturally, expressing himself authentically, his voice strong and clear, free from the previous constraints of fear. Alex's very interesting story wasn't just a tale of language acquisition, it was a narrative of empowerment. He had unlocked not just his English-speaking potential, but also a newfound confidence that rippled into every aspect of his personal and professional life. He truly understood that, how make confidence in speaking began internally, with a willingness to be vulnerable and to accept imperfection. The external practice then solidified that inner belief, turning hesitant attempts into effortless, enjoyable conversations. And so, Alex continued his journey, no longer burdened by the daily day's struggle, but invigorated by the endless possibilities that fluent English offered. His transformation was complete, yet the learning and practicing never truly stopped, a lifelong joy.